goes. Our class will be around 90 minutes. Guy will speak around 60. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll have a Q&A for everyone, either in the room or online. And then when we're done with that, we'll keep the cameras rolling for a little while longer, and the people in the room can come up here and share what they hear. It's important that we communicate with each other, the impressions we get from our own work or from the talk. And that's really half of what this class is about. Guy shows us things, and then we're able to work with them and be able to share with each other, the validity of it more than anything else. So finally, I remind you that all these classes are free, and they're sponsored by the Life of Learning Foundation here in Oregon, where Guy is the director. And if you'd like to help us with our mission to really just get these ideas out in as many places as we can around the world, you can help us by going to guyfinley.org/donate at any time. And just want to thank those of you who regularly help us, and those of you who would like to. Any size donation helps us. And if you give a donation here in the United States, they're tax deductible. So I think that's all we need right now. Guy, I'll read the topic in key lesson.
Yes, please.
And we'll get started. The topic today is freedom from the endless voices of painful choices. And the key lesson reads, the more we work to attend to the need of each new moment, the more the conflict of yesterday, along with its closest friend called the fear of tomorrow, seems to be miraculously resolved and then just quietly disappear.
Well, just for fun, let me see you look like you really want to be here. What a surprise that would be. Why is it that when it comes to spending time with truthful principles in an atmosphere that is healthy and safe, why is it that I always feel like I'm at the dentist office prior to the extraction of those thoughts and feelings that then I'm grateful took place? Something for you to ponder someday. So, I'm just curious. Start out on the right foot. And by the way, do you know that when you are on the right foot that there's no such thing as a wrong foot? What does that mean? Well, let's examine it. Freedom from the endless voices of painful choices. How many of you know kind of what that means without having to think about it? Endless voices, painful choices. We grow up, spend our whole life engaged with this cacophonous mind. It's movement, drilling, drumming, pushing, shoving. And for what? Because implied in all of that tension, implied in that doubt or that fear, that uncertainty, implied in it is a choice is mandated here. I wouldn't be feeling what I'm feeling if there weren't a problem, and the problem is intimately connected to my particular sense of protection or well-being, and therefore it is a requirement that I make a choice to free myself from these painful, conflicted voices. Is that not an accurate description of the interior movement when a human being is suddenly beset by, and I'll ask you, what doesn't it happen Isn't every unwanted moment the ground of a series of critical questions? You don't even hear the questions. And by the way, the questions are always on the backside of a desire, because the disturbance creates an unevenness. Now I feel like I must restore balance. And the sense of lost balance belongs to a consciousness that is always thrown onto the wrong foot whenever something goes the way it doesn't want it to go. So then in that moment, all of this, what does that mean? How does that apply to me? What am I to do? What direction do I go in now for protection? And when you look and listen and ask without even knowing you're asking, what direction for protection? Where's your compass? What is the compass that's in your hand when you're looking for direction to protect yourself from that circumstance? What's the nature of the compass?
Fear.
What?
Fear.
No, fear is one of the four directions. No, the compass is my consciousness. The compass is the content of my experience up until that moment, because what else do I have to draw on in order to deliver myself to what will save me from this problem? So I look to the very compass, the very content of a consciousness that has delivered me into that conflict. Because what am I in conflict with? The world? Or the fact that the world has brought me something that is interfering with the contentment derived from how I see things? Do you see the difference? So already we're looking at this loop, a certain state of a consciousness reincarnating itself and reincarnating itself over and over again, calling the reincarnation the resolution to the problem that it created. But it never says, I created that problem. It says, they created that problem. That moment is responsible for this ruinous feeling I have. Therefore, I must figure out what the right action to take, or if I don't stay ahead of the game, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to me if I don't stay ahead of the game? Loss. One day, I've been saying these things for a gazillion years. I'm trying to stay ahead of a consciousness that is always ahead of me, because it's always predicting and promoting and promising things that when I become identified with what it says that time will free me, becomes the ground of the next issue I have when that freedom is challenged, because the condition says it can no longer remain in place. You can't be who you've been. Now you have to come up with a new you. That's when people start drinking and drugging. People start falling into the bitterness of a defeated mind, a defeated body. Because all day long, they repeat the same behavior, reincarnate themselves without knowing they're doing so. So in those moments, we are so used to this, what we'll just call a general level of stress. G-L-O-S, gloss. How many of you have gloss? General level of stress. Glossa. General level of stress and anxiety. And you always gloss over the glossa, don't you? Meaning that I'm just used to it. I'm used to laying in bed and thinking about what to do with the last thing that I just did that already looks like it's not going to work. And I lay there and then I take drugs and I drink and I find ways to distract myself, believing that the option of distracting myself from the darkness that's overcome me somehow allows me for a moment's peace to escape that darkness. And it doesn't escape the darkness is producing the distractions. And until a person begins to understand that, at the basis of all of these thoughts and feelings about what do I do, what should I not do, at the basis of all of them is what? What's the right thing to do here? Isn't it? What is the right thing to do here? Is this right? Going in this direction? Or is it wrong to go in that direction, and therefore I should go in the other direction? And what's the other direction? If this is the right direction, that means that somehow something in me has determined the wrong direction, hasn't it? But have you ever noticed this? Because we're going to dive into it a little bit. You can resolve a direction and you take 2 steps in that direction and up comes a wind and it turns you slightly and it says, well, that's not quite the right direction. Because there's a few things I didn't think about before when I first started that direction. When I first said, yeah, that's the way to go, certain things hadn't occurred to me. But as I take action along that direction, it produces certain results, and those results then run counter to what I think is right. And I'm like a drunken bee flying from flower to flower, hoping to rest someplace, and I can't because something keeps pushing me out and pushing me out. No rest for the wicked. The true meaning of that. In spite of what? All of that. Because this is your work. In spite of what? How many times have I figured out the right thing to do? The right way to go? The right person to be? Because underneath it, that's all that's going on. I want to be the right person. I want to be someone that not only I'm not in conflict with, but whatever I decide will be seen by everybody else as being the right thing. In spite of all that, this is where your work is so mandatory for being honest. I'm right back afraid again. I mean, literally right back to being anxious again. I made these choices to get rid of that problem, change that relationship. I knew the right thing and I knew the wrong thing, and I did it. I did it to the best of my ability. And then the next thing I know, whatever it was that I did to the best of my ability, it wasn't good enough. Because now I'm angry again. Now I can't set that down. It just won't leave me alone. Why can't I be left alone? And then as soon as I ask the question, something says, well, here's the direction to go. Get rid of him. Do this, more of that. Go away. Anything. And then I do all of that as dutifully as I can, because for one thing, I'm compelled to do it. Because it's hell if I don't do that. And I don't want to be in hell. I want heaven. And so heaven becomes an invention of a consciousness in hell. Yes or no? See, have you noticed how much you didn't want to hear that? I saw some of you actually kind of pull back like turtles inside of a shell. Well, how else do you explain that your heaven becomes hell if hell didn't invent it? But that's quite the quandary, isn't it? It seems to me, at the point of time when all of these decisions are being made, that this condition is pretty much different than the other conditions. There's other people involved. Certainly it can't be the same. There's circumstances that have changed. I'm a lot older. I live someplace else. I dress differently. I wear different makeup. I mean, please, I've reinvented myself. How many times have you reinvented yourself? Can you count? Maybe you don't think you've reinvented yourself, but every time you come up with a new image that takes you in a new direction, you have been reinvented by a self that has provided you that direction so that when you get there, it can reinvent itself, which is basically what the whole of this life on the planet is about. People reinventing themselves and then forgetting that when they get to where that new self took them, there was nothing new there other than I had to reinvent myself again. So what's the conclusion to all of that, if you will? Why does nothing change? Again, see, it looks to me like it changed. I got new people in my life. I got my finances are better or they're worse. I feel better or I feel worse. But when everything is said and done, if I'm still anxious and afraid, if my mind is still tortured, has anything changed? And if you're honest, you say, no, it hasn't. Well, sweet Mother of God, how else do I bring about a change? Because what are the options for me and you when it comes to changing our life? What are the options? Anybody? For us, the options are to want something else. That's the option. What I wanted, not so good. I'm going to keep a little bit of it because that part was pretty darn good. So I'm going to move this part of what I want out of all the things that I don't want that didn't exist, by the way, until I wanted what I did. Yes or no? So I'm going to just pick this little part of what I want out of the rest of it and move it into a new barrel of wants. And then I got a new barrel of wants, and I'm bathing in it. I'm drinking from it. It's beautiful. And then something happens. And the next thing I know, my barrel of wants is full of unwants again. And then I think to myself, well, I need to take what I don't want out of this barrel because it's messing with what I do. And that pretty much summarizes the whole movement of the mind every day. Resolving, reconciling, trying to figure out how to do what it needs to do so that I can finally get past this problem of my wants turning into not wants. Everybody still following me? Now, can you think of, when you start snorkeling, not putting on the scuba gear yet, we're just snorkeling. Our faces in the water, looking down at all the creatures there on the reef, but we're not going down yet. We're just going to look. Can you think of anything in your life that you want that the moment you want it, you don't want it? Now, this question for most people is challenging because we don't understand that. But at great expense to the management, I'm going to help you see some of it. Here's an example. I've got work to do, but I really want to rest. So I want to work, but I don't want to work. I want to rest, or I really need to rest. I'm so tired. I got to rest. Yeah, but you've got so much to do. I know. Get up, man. No, yes, no, yes. How about I want his approval or her approval. I want their approval. I want them to say yes to me. But in my efforts to get you to say yes to me, I live with a constant resentment of what I call your power over me. Because if I don't do what you want me to do, I fear I will lose what you can give me. So I'm in yes, I want you to like me, but no, I don't want to have to do what I have to do so you do like me. I don't want to enable you, but I'm afraid not to enable you for fear of what it will cost me if you don't like me anymore. So yes, no, yes, no. Do you see it, please? I shouldn't feel this way. I'm like the worst person that ever lived. Yes or no? But I do feel this way. What am I going to do? I shouldn't be like this, but I'm like this. So I want to say yes to all the things that I should be, but no more do I say yes to all that I should be than something shows me I'm not the should I would be. Instead, I'm would I wouldn't be, and I shouldn't be that. How's that? I could never do that again if I lived for 1,000 years. Yes, this is me. No, that's not me. Yes or no? How about this one? I need to exercise. No, you don't. Get out of your chair. Maybe a little bit later. No, you really need to exercise. Yeah. I'm the first time in my life I'm going to let a thought go by without doing something about it. Yes, exercise. No, I don't want to. I want and I don't want at the same time. And now to bring it to the ground level, I know I want to make real changes in my life. But I understand that the real changes produce the fear of consequences should I make those changes. So I want to be different, and yet I'm afraid of what it will cost me to actually be a different kind of human being. Is that not a classic state of where what I want to be different produces all of the fear of what will be required if I don't? So want and not want, are they actually separate? Or is the consciousness in which want and not want lives, is it not in a state of constant conflict itself, trying to escape itself through one opposite or another? Please, very important point. How many of you see it? Say it out loud so people at home know that someone else gets it. Yes. I'm this side, and then I'm that side. And then I'm on that side, and then I'm on this side. And this side knows everything that's wrong about that side. And that side knows everything it needs to do to get away from itself to this side. Yes? Are there sides? Or is it a consciousness divided up into something that supports and protects one idea it has of itself, and in the very support and protection of that image produces everything that threatens that image, so it's forever bouncing back and forth in a world where the conflict never ceases because the root of the conflict is in this divided consciousness that doesn't understand its own activity? Yes? Can that nature ever know the end? Can that nature ever know the end of the endless voices and the painful choices it feels compelled to consider and then make? No. Now let's be very clear. Can that consciousness ever know the end of those voices saying, and then when it says, a new choice? And the new choice always, one way or the other, requires that something of who and what I've been, if it's not enhanced and enlarged, I have to leave it. Endless voices, painful choices. But you see, the real problem is we're not actually aware of that. That's a fact. You aren't aware of the endless voices. Because if you were aware of the endless voices, you would realize that just because you do what they tell you to do doesn't make them go away. Isn't that what all of the choices are about? Is to make the endless voices finally shut up? You see lunatics on the street talking to themselves. Do you know what that final breakdown in that psychosis? Do you know what that psychosis is? It's the final inability on their part to mask what their mind is always doing. Because our mind is always doing it. If you actually moved your head and moved your lips and all the rest of that while you were talking to yourself, you'd be committed someplace. What do I do about this? I don't know. Well, how about, no, that's not going to work. Yeah, I mean, have you measured? Yeah, I've done a lot of thinking about this. Well, I mean, Guy, you know, like, there's so much. Yeah, but I can't keep doing this. I know, but if you don't, you know, this is like a zoo. I know it's like a zoo. Everybody's crazy. So what are we looking at? If in fact these endless voices don't come to an end when I make the choices that they offer, what are we looking at? See, this is what this consciousness fears, and the world has done everything to keep out of it the understanding that there is another world that isn't filled with endless voices and painful choices. Literally another world. It's the only world we know, isn't it? Only world my parents knew, only world their parents knew. A world that continues to create conflict as a reflection of its own ignorance, and then tries to solve the conflict by approaching it with the same ignorant consciousness that produced it. I've said so many times in talks, and I return to it. I think if I had to boil everything down, this one passage in the New Testament is a summation of everything that you will find in all of the other, whatever the true scriptures are, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, the Dhammapada, the ancient true teachings, all of which are not intended to become something that someone knows and then calls upon by rote whenever something happens to wreck the moment. But all of the teachings point to the possibility of an individual recognizing through their direct experience of their own consciousness the fact that that consciousness cannot save itself. And in recognizing that all of those thoughts and feelings, all of those deliberations have never delivered me from my fear. I've never been delivered from my anxiety, my resentments, my regrets by one thing that my mind has ever concluded, ever. It kicks the can down the road, and I don't want to see that I'm still 95, 140 years old, and I'm still kicking the can. My toes look like a ballerina's toes. They're so stubbed from kicking the can so many times. You can't serve two masters. You will love one and despise the other. You cannot serve two masters. You will love one and despise the other. Why? Again, looking at this and then making a transition. Because to identify with what I love in that moment. And what do I love? What I love is to get away from and add to myself something that isn't part of what I don't want. Isn't that what I love in that moment? The sense of myself derived from the sensation of a new image and the new me that's going to finally be born when I get him, her, this and that straightened out. So that's what I love. But you can't be delivered from what you don't want by what you do. You cannot be delivered from what you don't want by what you do want. Because the idea of being delivered from this is to create the moment of the next thing I will have to be delivered from. So I love this and then I despise that. And what is it that I despise? It's always an opposite of something that I love. What is it that I don't want? It's always an opposite of something I do want. And I believe somehow or other that want and not want are actually separate, because when I'm identified with one or the other, I don't see that they're together, do I? When I want something, I'm not thinking that that didn't come out of what I don't want. And when I don't want something, I don't think to myself that what I do want has come out of that barrel. So I think they're separate barrels, don't I? Separate entities. Because there is always a separate self identified with one or the other and never understands that the self that is identified with one or the other is the master that you cannot serve. That's so important to see. Do you get that a little bit? Because I want to make a transition. Yes or no?
Yes.
Now let's change it slightly. You cannot serve two masters, for you will say yes to one and no to the other. Isn't what I love yes? And isn't what I don't want and hate, despise, isn't that no? So now I'm trying to bring your mind into seeing something, that you can't say yes to one without despising the other. You can't say, yes, that's what I want, without saying, no, that's what I don't. And you can't say, no, that's what I don't want, without saying yes to what I do. It's impossible. Please, this is such an important idea. Just a glimpse. There is no separate from the other. I think I escape what I don't want when I want something. So I say, yes, this is the problem. Here's your choices. Okay, I'll go that way. Yes, yes. When I get you straightened out, mother of pearl, life will be precious again. Yes to that. And no more, by the way, and please see this, do I say yes to that, then as I start to act on yes, a whole bunch of no's start to appear in the yes. Yes or no? Yeah. Because I'm going to send that email. That person is not going to talk to me like that. They'll see. And that's the first big yes and the first heavy-duty identification, because now I'm rescued from the pain of believing that you disrespected me or that this isn't right. And then I sit down to write the note. Endless voices, painful choices. And then I start couching what I have to say. I start figuring out how to get the maximum result out of what it is that I want. But I mustn't be too aggressive. Because there may come a point where somehow or other, I really can't stand you, but I don't want to come out and say I can't stand you. Why? Because there's the part of me that shouldn't be like someone who can't stand others. So I'm thrown into this melting pot of miserable contradictions in my own consciousness, where every last action I'm going to take is met with a series of counter associations to them, each and every one, so that I wind up like a lunatic. And yes or no, no matter what I decide, I'm not quite content. Do you see it or not? This is not for me, this is for you. Okay, that's it. That's the direction I'm going in. just a little bit of an angle, because I could start to see once I was moving that direction that there could be some problems. There may be implications to that direction. And so I start to slightly change my course. And every course change requires what? Another set of associations and deliberations. Is that right? Is this good? Is that a yes? Is that a no? And what happens to me? Take this in the right way. What happens to me is nothing. I'm exactly the same man or woman that went into that conflicted moment as the one that came out of it. Just that I think I have new things to think about, new problems, new things to weigh and measure, so that in my measurement and weighing of those things, I can finally come to a solid yes, and that'll be the path for me. Now, I've described a problem, haven't I? What's the solution? Can the solution be arrived at by a solution? Meaning, here I am, I know the suffering is inherent in a consciousness that no more says yes than it says no, or no more says no than it despises what it does and needs a new yes. If I know that as a fact, then the entire basis of the way in which I measure my life and make the choices accordingly has to go. Not because I want it to go. I've been quite complicit and content in a certain way with my immense dissatisfaction after having said, yes, this is it. I mean, how many people do you think that they say, boy, I can't wait to retire? Yeah, people, I'm just waiting until I retire. And then they don't know what to do with their life. And then they need a new hobby. And then they get a new hobby, and then, today's, oh boy, I get to do my hobby today. my favorite hobby. Because when I first thought it up, God, I want to be a painter. Man, do I want to learn electronics. I'm going to become a physicist. No, I'm saying, and then this is great, and you're talking about, this is great, you should do what I do, it's fantastic. And then like 6 months later, how's it going? I've decided that I'm not going to be a physicist. What are you going to be? I'm going to be a pharmacist. I'm going to figure out drugs that I can take to get over my disappointment with my physicism. I'm just painting a big picture. Here's the answer. It's in a story form. Take a nice deep breath. We can all relax for at least another 7 minutes. Do it. Nice deep breath. Bring yourself back into your body. I'm just curious you can see this. Is resistance to life a big yes or a big no? And why would I have resistance to any particular moment in life, especially since every moment is new? Why would I have an immediate resistance to any moment that comes along? Unless that whatever has come along is saying no to a yes that I have. Isn't that, how else can you explain it? So here I am, I'm a body, I'm a living dichotomy that doesn't know it's split into a yes and no that are never at peace with each other, because they can't be, because one requires the other in order for it to continue. Here's the story. Once upon a time, there was a man and a woman, and they were both really tired. Good start? And they were both really tired because they had retired, and in their retirement, they had decided where they wanted to live. But the problem with where they lived, and it was a big problem, is they lived on a mountain that was equally divided right down the middle and capped off at the top by some impassable area filled with clouds that you couldn't see above. So the only choice that this couple had in their retirement was they had to choose whether they wanted to live in the land of the yes people or live in the land of the no people. Because that's all there was. This line right down the middle, yes people on one side, no people on the other side. And at first, which would you go to? I'm going with the yes people. By God, yes, I'm a positive person. I have strong opinions and they're always correct. Yes, yes, yes. Just ask me. I know everything. And I'm no longer living there for whatever period of time I'm living there. Then I start to notice that the yes people have a big problem with the people on the other side of the mountain. They're always in some kind of war with them. And not only are they in war with the no people, but they want me to join their war against the no people. And if I don't join their war against the no people, then I'm thrown over to the no people side. I'm canceled. So I don't know what to do. So for a long time, I joined the people of the yes land. And what is the one objective of all the people in the yes land? What's the one objective? Get the people in the no land to be yes people. Now, how many of you have worked with no people? And how's it going in your war with no people? Anybody that even, certain times my wife and I will be talking about certain things, this is just little inside personal stuff. And I'll say something that I think is pretty evident, and I don't know whether it's natural or it's contrarian, but she'll say, well, I don't think so. Or what about this? Asking me if that isn't equally true. And of course, it's all equally true. But you just throw an opinion out there and the least bit of contradiction to it, and you're at war with the no people, aren't you? I mean, after all, can't you see that yes means I know everything? That's what it means. How do I know everything? Because I recognize everybody that doesn't know what I know. And I know them immediately, and they're the no people. So I'm at war with everything on the no side because I'm on the yes side. But one day, I'm realizing, you know what? I'm tired of being at war. These yes people, this yes, it pushes me. Tells me, you gotta go, gotta fix. This is the direction. And then I think, I've been doing this for a long time. It doesn't work. Maybe I was wrong. And so what do? I pack up my stuff and I go to the place of the people of the no land. And on the place of the no land, it's kind of comfortable at first because everything's kept at bay, except there's one big problem with always having no. And what's the big problem with no? Yes. I can't. Why can't we be at peace? I just want to be negative. Leave me alone. That's right. What's wrong with complaining all the time? Who's it hurting? Those idiot yes people who don't like who say no to my no. And if they say no to my no, what is a person who says no to my no? What does it make them? A yes person. So I back and forth and no at war with yes and yes at war with no. Please, this is an interior story. Do you see it or not? Yes, I should be this. No, you shouldn't. So this couple spends the next 30 years, and that would be a short time, vacillating between the people of the yes land and the people of the no land. And one day they're getting ready once again because they can't stand where they are. The yes isn't a yes, is it? The yes is never really a yes, is it? It always has a no in it. And the no is never really a no because it always wants something else besides that. And they're sitting there talking as they're making the journey again. And they reach the dead middle of the place between the two lands because there's a gate there. And he says to her, I can't go there. And she says, and I can't go there. Well, what are our options? And this is where it becomes difficult. I don't know that we have any options other than we can't go to yes or no. Well, what's left? This gate, this place. That's all that's left is this line that isn't yes and this line that isn't no. That's all that's left. Well, what do you suggest? He said, I don't know. But I do know one thing for sure. If we go to the yes, we're going to find up a no. If we go to the no, so he said, we have to stay here, but there's no place to stay here. He said, we'll make one. But there's no space. An inch that way is yes, an inch that way is no. He said, don't you see? There is no option. He said, all right, I'll stay here for a while with you and see what happens. Now, bringing you in, what happens to the people standing in the place that is not yes and that is not no? Are they not subject, standing there, to the people on the yes side? What are you doing? You need to say yes. Make a commitment for God's sake. And the people on the no side, what do you lost your mind? You can't go there. And you know the story of Buddha of Siddhartha, when all the demons and the goddesses and all the so-called forces were summoned there to get him to depart from under the Bodhi tree. All of the various stories that are parallels across all scripture, suddenly they're visited on both sides, thoughts and feelings yelling at the people of no land and the people of yes land, talking to them, threatening them, telling them all these things. And suddenly it even becomes more evident, and this is a stage in your journey, it becomes more evident. How could I have ever been deceived into believing that either side of this equation could deliver me from the very experience of this equation that I never saw was connected to each other? The yes people have an industry of trying to defend themselves from the no people. You look at this world that we're in, and you can see every last part of it. The commerce is dependent on no, or the commerce is dependent upon yes. Political, religious affiliations don't exist without this schism between yes and no, the yes people and the no people. And what do you have when you have constant yes and no, trying to sell each other what they need and convince the others? What do you have? You have a planet coming apart at the seams. You have the collapse of a civilization. That's what you have. And if you don't want the collapse of your consciousness, which is where all of this schizophrenic consciousness leads to, you have to understand what I'm explaining to you. So they stay there. And finally, they're beleaguered. And he says, enough. You want to write something down? He says to the people on both sides, to the yes and no, this is your war, not mine. This is your war, not mine. I always thought it was mine because I'm on the yes side. I'm at war with no. I'm all up to say, no, that's not right. I'm at war with yes, it is. This is not my war. And I'll have nothing more to do with it. At which point, when he says it earnestly, they begin to depart. And you'll see this. All that keeps them there is the possibility of you saying yes or no, resistance or acceptance. That's all that keeps those thoughts and feelings there. And when he stayed on that side, right there in the middle, long enough, what do you think happened? This is the happy part of the story, but you mustn't believe in it. You must see it for yourself. They're standing there, nowhere to go, and right out of the clouds, a rope drops. Right out of nowhere. A rope drops right out of that unseen land just above the world and the land of yes and no. Just a rope drops right down. Well, where's that coming from? I don't know. And then you'll have to go through this. Well, I don't know. Well, how can you be sure it's safe? Right back into the hand of yes and no. Do you understand that? Now I'm going to measure and decide by this whether this is good. But when you actually reach that place, and down comes suddenly what? An understanding. An epiphany. A realization that you were never an inhabitant of yes land or no land, saved by an unconscious default mechanism that told you if you didn't have one side or the other, you would have no existence at all as an individual. The reason we never see this invisible land, this invisible understanding that sits above these opposites, is because we're always in one way or another on one side or another. Always. To try to understand that there is above yes and no. You know how we've been talking about this space between the reaction and the identity that's assumed? between the reaction and the yes and no, which is always the identity, isn't it? Isn't yes, I'm going to be this, or no, isn't that an identity? Between the reaction and the identity is this space. So that means there's a space before we're offered this yes or no alternative, and we must enter into that. Above yes and no is an order of understanding born of an awareness of the opposites. Above the world of yes and no is another order of understanding, another kind of awareness of the opposites. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, I am the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. I am the knower of the activities in every individual body. That means that in every individual body, in every individual thought, every feeling, everything the body mounts, there is already a knower present within it. The light dwelleth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not. That's what that means. I am the knower of the field of activities, not I am the one going back and forth in this field of activities. I am the knower of the field of those activities. I am the knower of the field of my own mind as it sets itself against itself or in favor of something it has imagined. I'm the knower of it. What does that mean? It means I'm not no, I'm not yes, but rather I am something that sees the appearances of these two things and knows better than to take one or the other at face value and then find myself caught in that circle again. Everybody still following me? And then there's another passage in I think it's in the Gita. He says, those who know the three become conscious through them. Those who know the three become conscious through them. What does that mean? Those that know that this out here and that out there are not who I am becomes aware of a new order of himself that is not this and not that. Nyeti, nyeti. Not this, not that, but the awareness of those, that's the three that becomes conscious of himself, herself. It all weaves together. It's difficult to try to help you see it in one fell swoop, as it were. But if you're working, you can begin to understand, well, this pretty much holds true. If this idea that yes doesn't exist without no, so no matter what I say yes to in the hopes of escaping myself, I've actually just created a condition that will appear downstream that I'm going to say no to. It's inevitable. If nothing else, I just get bored with it. It doesn't serve me anymore. And then when something doesn't serve me anymore, what do? I think of something to serve me. So I say no to what once served me, and I say yes to what will. I have a new life, don't I? No, I don't. What I have is a life that is just repeating itself because that consciousness never knows when it repeats itself. If this consciousness were actually aware of the fact that it was getting ready to reincarnate itself, would it do it? When what it's trying to reincarnate itself from is what it can't stand being anymore. Would you go from can't stand being you to can't stand being you? Would you? That makes no sense, does it? So I don't go from can't stand being me to can't stand being me. I go from can't stand being me to here's the new me. Oh, wait a minute, I can't stand being the new me. What do you think the exercise is? Because we have to get to it. What is this place between yes land and no land? Well, let's reverse it. Let's reverse it. What is yes land other than the moment in which I'm identified with the positive sensations produced by the next plan? Isn't that what yes land is? But does yes land exist without connected to no land? We know that's a fact. Well, what is no land? No land is my complete clarity that you're an idiot, or that this can't go on this way anymore. I've got to change myself. So no land never knows yes land. Yes land never knows no land. They do not know each other because that consciousness is divided. Yes never knows no. No never knows yes. But if you can see what I'm talking about, then the only way in which one finds that place between these two lands, that space between the reaction and the next set of endless voices and painful choices, the only possibility is for me to recognize in that moment when I feel that the onset of that contraction, the onset of that tightening of my chest, the shortening of my breath. These are things we're not mostly aware of because the very body involved in the mechanical action of a consciousness contracting actually confirms to the consciousness that it's doing the right thing. Because isn't your consciousness saying, I've got to protect myself from the no people. I got to protect myself from the yes people. It's always saying that. So at the moment of protection, we're not used to this idea that somehow or other, how can being contracted inside of myself, feeling this sense of threat, how can that ever lead me to freedom? And yet I believe that escaping a threat is the same as being free of what was threatened. Do you not? We must take that moment where we have the first glimpse of that reaction and bring that first glimpse of that reaction into the light of our awareness. Now listen, where part of that awareness is I start seeing my mind talking, I start hearing the endless voices. If I don't hear the endless voices, what am I? I'm one of them. And if I don't hear the endless voices, then I'm certainly not aware of the fact that they're telling me choices to make that promise to free me from pain. But no endless voice born out of threat or fear can possibly bring about a choice, anything other than just an opposite of the condition it's threatened by. Write this down, and then I'm going to give you the actual definition of it. A little exercise in short terms. Ready? How many of you know the song, Silent Night, Holy Night? Yeah? Silent sight, holy sight. The ground of all that is bright and right. Silent sight, holy sight. The ground of all that's bright and right. Silent sight, holy sight. I never see holy. I see in part. And I see in part because the part of me that sees what it does requires seeing what it does so that it can have a part in rescuing me from itself, which it never does. So how do we put that idea together of silent sight, holy sight? Let me read to you the special writing. This is an exercise. It is a meditation, a point of contemplation. I can't tell you the value of it. You have to discover it for yourself. It's called The Doorway to the Divine. Somewhere between either or, just beyond yes and no, there is a door. Seek it. Find it. Dare to abide there long enough, and it opens all by itself. Behold, a new world brimming with bright possibilities, unimaginable, a heartbeat before. This is a true story. Somewhere between either or. Isn't that always it? Well, it's either this or it's that, but whatever or is, it's a no, and if it's a no, it's got a yes. Somewhere between either or. That's my whole life. Either I do this or I don't do that. Either I go there or I don't go there. But no matter which decision I make, it's never a complete decision. I'm always in conflict. But I think I'm in conflict because the world is the way it is. But I'm not in conflict because of the way the world is. The world is the way it is because this consciousness has created in its own image, filled with conflict that promises if I just take this side or that side, if I just resolve this thing through a definite yes or a definite no, I'll be free. Somewhere between either or, but just beyond yes and no, there is a door. Seek it. Knock and the door will open to you. Dare to stand there long enough. That's what the couple did, wasn't it? It wasn't because they wanted to stand in a place where it was just pure uncertainty, but because they had the certainty that moving off of that place, away from that, was certain that they would then become again a participant in the yes land or the no land. Stand there long enough and it opens all by itself. What does it mean it opens all by itself? Because standing there, you suddenly are in a place where you can see and hear the endless voices. You can actually start to see the choices that you're being offered are being proffered to you by a part of you that's punishing you or promising you. And is not punishment and promise the same thing at the level of that consciousness? Behold the whole new world. And the extraordinary thing is, the whole new world is the world that you're in at that moment. Because you're a whole